And we are back, and we just finished 1980's lovely and heartbreaking Ordinary People, directed by Robert Redford, from a book by Judith Guest and a screenplay by Alvin Sargent, and it says Nancy Dowd, uncredited. This is the story of Conrad, played by Timothy Hutton, a young man who has an amazing amount of survivor's guilt after his older brother is killed in a boating accident. Well, not accident, but just...
It was a boating accident, yeah.
I guess, yeah. I mean, there was a storm, the boat capsized, and the older brother just couldn't hold on. This is your first time watching this from start to finish. What'd you think?
Well... It is the first time watching it from start to finish as an adult.
As an adult. Oh, right. Yes.
I did see this movie in the theater when I was a very little boy. Probably 7 or 8. It was not for me. I remember being bored out of my mind. Like, basically flopping around in my seat, upside down, putting my head under the armrest, everything just beyond bored. As an adult, now I could appreciate how good this film is.
And you were shocked at the director.
Yeah, I didn't. I know that he directs movies, but for the life of me, I couldn't tell you a single one. And now I know one. Hey, Ordinary People, directed by Robert Redford.
Didn't he direct The Natural?
I don't know. I've never seen The Natural. But this was good.
This was good.
So good job, Robert Redford.
This is the
Only
movie.
44 years
later.
Yeah.
This is the film that turned me off to Mary Tyler Moore. I'm going to out myself because I saw this also as a child and was just dumbstruck because it's a hard sit through. As a parent, as a human being, this is a story that will really claw at your insides because the things that are sort of presented and explained are incredibly tragic and sad. And yet there is a character who refuses to change.
Yeah, I could honestly be with you there as far as
refuses
as
to
far
change.
as hating Mary Tyler Moore because she did an amazing job
of being a bitch.
With a capital B.
Yes. There's really no other word for her. And I have disliked her. May she rest in
there
peace.
is another word for that.
Yes, there is, but we're going to try to keep this clean, or as clean as we can. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm sure she was a lovely woman, but she really made me dislike her so much after this role.
Right, and you don't, I mean, growing up, Mary Tyler Moore was
the wife
on the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Or the lady in the Mary Tyler Moore show with
Mary Tyler Moore show.
Grant
just
and all those other people.
Sweet and nice, and it was almost like she just went to the studio and was just like, I don't want to be sweet and nice.
I want to be a bitch.
Give me a role where I am the biggest monster on the screen. and she did it. She was horrible. She was
awful.
Just all she cared about was appearances. And it was so brutal seeing, I mean, that last hug that Conrad gives her.
She doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, the way she reacts to that hug. That was seriously like a turning point for Donald Sutherland.
Yeah.
Seeing that. Because you could see he's trying to keep it together. He's trying to sort of reconcile some sort of understanding between his wife and his son. More so working it on from like coming at it to the wife. And I think at that point when he sees that, it was just...
That's like the thing that clicked in his head.
It was just, this situation is hopeless. There is no hope here. This person that I am married to now is not the person that I thought she was. She is changed. And the way he describes it, that when they buried Buck, they buried that part of her as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great line. Yeah.
And yeah, because seriously, it was almost like Conrad it was like an embarrassment. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And the torment that this kid is going through, because he was there. He's holding on to his brother's hand.
Yeah.
And the storm is just raining down upon them, and Buck just lets go. Yeah. And you just see him, he just disappears under the boat.
Yeah.
And he is just carrying that guilt with him. And It's not. It really isn't his fault.
It really isn't. It really, really isn't.
But you could tell that as far as the situation goes, it's Buck was the golden boy. Buck was the crown jewel of the family. And now he's gone, so we have to deal with this. And my other son is this. One, it's his fault. And two, I can't show him around society.
Right.
I can't bring him around. He was institutionalized for this.
Right. There's also that scene earlier when they're at that dinner party, the birthday, where Donald Sutherland's character is having a conversation with that woman on the staircase, and she hears, and then she gets upset, and she's like, "You drink too much. You blab too much, and you shouldn't be telling people about our situation, like our family stuff."
Yeah, because it's a stain upon their family in her eyes.
Right, right.
She would, you know what? I'm sure she would have been happier if Conrad was just completely unfeeling about Buck's death. If he had just been like, "Oh, okay, it's a shame that he died," and didn't go through the depression that he did and have to be put in a sanitarium.
Yeah, for trying to kill himself.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. The fact that he tried to kill and that people know that he tried to do it.
Right, right.
I
think that's another reason why
this is like ridiculous. A blow that cannot be recovered no matter how pristine everything is, how neat your golfing outfit is.
Yeah.
Yeah. She really was. Well, we always go on vacation on Christmas.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't the time. I mean, this kid is in an extremely fragile state.
Right.
Let's care for the kid, which is Donald Sutherland's position.
Right.
And she's just like, no, this is appearances. Yeah. Appearances must be maintained.
And the other thing was, like, her whole thing, she was very combative to the point where she always spun it around like, "Oh, you always let him manipulate you."
Yeah,
or
the scene on the golf course.
Oh, that scene always made me uncomfortable. I don't know how did you feel as a first timer watching that scene?
I mean, that is hard, and seriously, what a bunch of douchebags will surround like that. There's the couple that they're with.
Her brother and his wife.
Brother and his wife. And then you just see other people just like stopping and being like, family drama. Let's just nose our nose into there.
Yeah.
Screw those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the fact that she turns it around. One, she starts the fight.
Yes.
Because she's like, we should do a golfing vacation. Mm-hmm. Just do all the courses. Mm-hmm. And he says, yeah, I'm sure Conrad would like that.
And that's when it's
just like
on.
It's on.
And she's like, do you do that on? Is it just reflex or do you do that on purpose? And he's like, he doesn't even understand what the hell's happening.
In his mind, it's just like, oh, a vacation?
Oh, I assume you meant Conrad.
I assume you meant our family.
Right.
But for her, it's like Conrad is just, why? Why would we bring that guy? He'll ruin our vacation.
Yeah.
That's your son. That's your son who tried to kill himself because he felt so terrible.
He has survivor's guilt.
He has such massive survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
And you're like pissed off because he's going to fuck up your vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had a theory, like not the first. Okay. So the first time I saw this film, I was completely scandalized and I've hated Mary Tyler Moore ever since. Probably for no good reason, but still, I've always carried that with me. And even after she passed, I was just like, no, she can burn in hell, Beth Jarrett.
Oh, come on. You gotta work on that.
I do. It's not today, though. So the second time...
Today is not that day.
Today is not that day. So the second... Look, okay, maybe not the second time, but in subsequent years, I've actually seen this movie several times. And because I am a masochist and I like to cry, I guess. I don't know. And so my theory later on was... And it's interesting because... So let me tell you what the theory is, and then I'll highlight something that was said, and then you tell me what you think. So in subsequent years, I thought that Beth loved Buck more. I couldn't think of his name. And it was almost like she was mad that Conrad survived and not Buck. There's a scene in the Johnny Cash movie, the one with Joaquin Phoenix. Was that it? Where he's like the wrong son died or something. The father says that to Johnny.
I think, there is a scene like that, but That's something that I've seen in other films as well.
Fair. It's not said here. It's never said. That's never said. Like, even in the golf, when she's golfing and they have that big blowout in front of her brother and her sister-in-law, she's quick to come back with, what mother doesn't love her child or something. But it's every time she says that line, it always felt so disingenuous. It always felt so disingenuous to me. So my theory was she was, because they do like that little snippet. I forgot whose memory it was. I don't know if it was hers or Conrad's, where they're all in the backyard talking and she's laughing hysterically at whatever Buck's talking about. And that felt like her authentic self. In that moment, it felt like her authentic self, that here she was listening to her golden boy telling this funny story. And my theory was she was mad that Conrad survived and that she would have wished that Buck had survived. Obviously, I've never read the book. I probably should. You can't get everything in a book in a movie. You obviously have to make changes, but I would be curious to look at the book now and wonder if that's part of the story. The other thing I wanted to say was towards the end, we're going to spoil this. Obviously, we already have.
4-year-old movie. Yeah.
Towards the end, when Donald Sutherland's talking to her and he says, I don't even know if you even loved Buck. And that the only person that he felt like she ever loved was herself.
Well, here's what I think, and from what they showed in the movie, there was this one scene where she goes into Buck's room, and you see it's basically like a shrine to Buck. Yeah. There's pictures of him.
In his own room.
Yeah, pictures of him, pictures of his accomplishments, his trophies, him getting awards, him getting praised, him being captain of the swim team, all over the place. This is definitely, I mean, I don't think that's something I would be putting in my own room. This is something that she did. And I think it wasn't so much, okay, you could say, because she is a unique case. Yeah, she has a point. It's her firstborn son. There is an attachment there that is special even amongst the children, other children. Right. But for me, I do agree with you. I do think that if she had a choice between Buck or Conrad dying that day, 100%. 10 out of 10, 100%.
Conrad. Take Conrad.
Take Conrad. Screw that kid. He's the spare. He's the one who has not accomplished anything. He has lived in Buck's shadow. He's on the swim team. He doesn't really even want to be on the swim team. Are you having fun?
Yeah.
I don't think he was ever having fun even before.
Right.
This tragedy or him being put away for almost killing himself. But
okay, go ahead.
And I think for Mary Tyler Moore, Buck was, like I said, the crown jewel, the showpiece. He was the blonde,
he was handsome, he was
all of that. He was the prime example of our family. He was the pride and joy. He was the fine china that you put out when guests come over. And that was gone now. And what do we have now? Conrad.
Oh, man.
Conrad is basically the equivalent of now all we have is paper plates and plastic knives and forks. That to me was her character in a nutshell. It was more so the appearance that Buck gave the family of this shining golden boy. And that's what hurt her. And then on top of that, okay, maybe we can get something out of this Conrad. Maybe we could mold him into another Buck, put him on the swim team, do all these other things. What do you mean he just tried to kill himself?
Right.
What are the neighbors going to think? How does this make us look? That's what was going through her mind. I don't think she even cared that he was in the hospital, because the father, Sutherland, even goes on to say, you came with us to the hospital, but you never saw him.
Right.
Yeah, because she was pissed. This kid embarrassed her.
Yeah.
So, given the choice, she would have totally preferred Conrad to be the one that died.
Yeah, I agree. And I also, it's something that you said before. There's a scene in the first third of the film where she comes home and she's pissed They've brought home the Christmas tree.
Oh, yes.
And she's pissed. And she's pissed because Conrad didn't mention that he quit the swim team a month before.
He embarrassed her again. Not that he quit. He embarrassed her in front of her friend. She didn't know, but the friend did.
Right. And he throws that in her face. Conrad throws that in her face. He's like, you're just upset because somebody knew before you.
Exactly. And he was 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. That's a hard film to watch, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah.
As
just
a parent,
you
right?
feel
as a
you
parent,
feel
as a human being.
You love your kids, and
when
you feel bad when you see some kid who's
being
just
mistreated.
Not only being mistreated, but the situation, like the reasoning behind it all. This is a young man who is suicidal because of what happened.
Right.
He has nightmares about his brother dying every night and believes that he is the one at fault because he couldn't get the rigging down, because he couldn't hold on tight enough. And none of that was his fault. None of it. It was just a stupid mistake. Disaster struck, and Buck let go.
Yeah.
And he was gone in an instant.
Yeah. I also love the Dr. Berger character, played by
Judd Hirsch.
Exquisitely played by Judd Hirsch. Excellent. I love towards the end when he's like, maybe you were stronger. And I don't think he ever thought that, because it when you see Tim Hutton's face, it's almost like it's not something he thought of.
Yeah. And he says, what's the one thing that you really did? And he's like, I held on. That was the only thing he was guilty of, holding onto the boat.
Right.
It had nothing to do. He had nothing to do with Buck's death.
Right.
And he's been like punishing himself relentlessly for all this time. To the point where, he slit his wrists.
Yeah. Terrible. Terrible. Fuck Beth Jarrett.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad she's dead, and I hope she burns in hell.
We're doing this film because, unfortunately, the legendary Donald Sutherland has passed. An incredible actor, always so fun to watch. Great voice, shilling orange juice and whatnot. I've always liked him. I've always liked him, even in crazy stuff like Don't Look Back
Now.
or Don't Look Now, whatever.
Master of the Sutherland maneuver.
Anyway, let's talk about Mr. Sutherland, Calvin. It's a shame that he isn't recognized. So this movie did really well at the Oscars in 1981. It won Best Director, it won Best Picture, it won Best Actor for Timothy Hutton, who deservedly so. I mean, he is phenomenal as this just open wound character.
Yeah.
And also the screenwriter for this film. But I want to go through all the characters. I first want to start with Donald Sutherland because, again, he's unfortunately passed. And he's been in bad things, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But this is an example of just something that he's so heartbreakingly wonderful in, because to see that progression, right? To see, like, just trying desperately to hold your family together, to try to be that piece, that glue that keeps everything together. And you know that things aren't okay, but you put on a brave face and Connie's great.
Not only that, but like you said, trying to keep it together, but inside he knows. It's his wife.
Yeah.
She's the reason why things are not healing.
Right.
And
he even makes a gesture, to your point, where he's like, we should all go to Dr. Berger.
Exactly, yeah.
And she shuts that shit down.
Oh, well, that would be another stain, another embarrassment on this family. Oh, now we have to go to family therapy?
Mm-hmm.
What are we, a bunch of like welfare crackheads who need social services?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
What would the neighbors think?
Right.
She was, like he said, she just wasn't that person anymore.
Right.
Like whatever love she may have had, it was buried with Buck.
And I think also that's a great line too. But I think also towards the end, he even wonders, like, did you ever?
Yeah.
Were you ever in love with me? Did you ever really love me?
And she says, I feel about you the way I always felt.
Right. Which
what
is not
does
an
that
answer.
Mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's that to me, that means, well, I like how we have a nice house and,
yes.
and good stuff.
That was another thing, not to get off topic, but I'm like, a tax attorney makes how much money? Because that house was beautiful. They lived in a really swank area.
Yeah, that was a gorgeous house.
Yeah. And I was like, I think I turned to you at one point. I was like, that house has got to be like $2 million, maybe even more.
Probably. Well, it's movie houses. I mean, come on. You look at the houses these people have in movies, and you're just like, what?
But that house is like.
Look at any John Hughes movie.
Yeah.
Every family, aside from like the even the poor people, their houses aren't that bad.
They're not that bad.
But the rich people, it's like.
But not
Jesus.
even like 16 Candles, like Samantha Baker's house. Like that house is probably like $3 million.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Home Alone house like went on sale recently or something,
yes.
and it was like $9 million.
Yeah. Well, also I think not like within the last couple of years, but I think recently the house from Moonstruck sold for like a ridiculous amount of money.
Oh, that was in New York too.
Right. Brooklyn Heights.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That could have been completely empty on the inside, just a burnt out hollow shell.
Yeah.
And it still would have went for $12 million.
Yeah. I don't remember, but I think it was double digits actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh my God.
Anyway, getting back to this.
Enough real estate talk.
And that's our real estate portion in movies. So I want to talk about what an understated, gorgeous performance Donald Sutherland does here. It is just outstanding. And it's a shame that he couldn't get an Oscar as well, because I think that, obviously this is Conrad's film. Yeah. But Donald Sutherland is just so heartbreakingly beautiful in this. You see him struggle, and to your point, I think that he knows that, because at the end he comes to that realization. He's like,
yeah, you could see he is definitely struggling with this, right? And him just sitting alone in that dining room with his head in his hands, crying, right? Because he knows, especially after that incredibly awkward hug.
Yeah. This kid's making the effort, and she just does not want any part of it.
Any part of it. And it's not even like her excuse, oh, well, I'm not going to give him a hug every time he comes home with a good test grade. Right. He was just saying good night.
Yeah. And he was lovely. He was like, I'm glad you guys are home.
I'm glad you guys are home. He gave her a hug, and her eyes were like bugged out. Yeah. She was just, why is this touching me? Yeah. Like she touched something gross in the refrigerator by accident. Yeah.
She is loathsome.
She is terrible. Loathsome. She's a horrible, horrible person.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about, so Donald Sutherland, just magnificent performance here, just heartbreaking, and just it's interesting to see his journey, because again, I agree with you. I think he struggles for most of it. I think subconsciously he knows. I love that scene with Dr. Berger where he's like talking to him, and he's like, well, I thought I would come and shed some light on things. And then at the end, he's like, I know why I'm here. Mm-hmm. And I love that he comes to that realization, and you see Dr. Berger / Judd Hirsch like, okay, well, let's talk. What do you want to talk about, kind of thing? Yeah. Because it's like, I'm sure Dr. Berger understood why Calvin was there. Yeah. But it just Calvin needed to understand why Calvin was there. And I think from that moment onward, he becomes a different person, and he almost, I don't want to say assertive, but he definitely asserts himself more, because when he comes home that night, he has that conversation with her about, why did you care what I wore to our son's funeral? Yeah. Why was that a big thing for you?
Well, that really shines a light on the whole, it's all about appearances with her. Yeah. Seriously, why would she care what color shirt or what shoes he was wearing?
If I'm burying my kid,
the death of his son,
I would go in a bathrobe. Yeah. Like, who cares?
Yeah, and nobody would judge you.
No. That's the most devastating time in life.
But in her mind, it's like, no, everything must be picture perfect. We must maintain the civility. And he even said she never cried.
She said he and Conrad.
Yeah,
Conrad and her never cried. Yeah. So
but I think for completely different reasons, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So it was interesting because Calvin also says Beth and Conrad are so alike. Do you see that?
I think he was misunderstanding that because of what was going on between them at the funeral and the fact that neither of them are crying. Because Beth was going to cry for, like we said, the sake of experiences, the sake of appearances, whereas Conrad was probably just shell-shocked
still, right, from the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm surprised he was even there.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was forced to show up, though, because, God, you can't. You must show up, and you must make sure your shoes are nice and shiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I could see. There was nothing else in the film that made me think that, Conrad really takes after his mom. Mm-hmm. If anything, he takes after the dad more because
he's more empathetic and passionate.
Exactly. He has more empathy. And obviously, Conrad is just drowning in his own emotions.
Yeah.
I don't think Mary Tyler Moore was capable of those emotions.
No.
I mean, if any sadness she may have felt was because, this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
There's that moment where she's grabbing her suitcases.
Mm-hmm. And she actually cries. And after what we've seen, like, what is she crying about? Is she crying about, like, has she reached the realization, like, oh my God, I am a bitch? Or is it just, I'm crying because this does not look good? So I have a theory about that. It's kind of funny. I was going to play devil's advocate because as much as I still hate Beth Jarrett, I wonder, because everything is learned behavior. I'm sure Beth was that way because of her parents.
Were her parents the one that were in the movie, or was
her parents were the ones that remember when they were taking pictures, and she kept saying to Calvin, like, "Oh, just give me the picture. I want a picture of the three," because she couldn't even stand to be next to her son for pictures, which was also grating. But I think that I wondered about her mother. Because there was that scene in the kitchen when they're making sandwiches or whatever, and she says something, and the mother's like, well, what do you mean, kind of thing. It was almost like judgy.
Yeah.
And then when they're away, and Conrad's coming to the house or going to the room that he's staying in, which I'm assuming is his mother's because it's got that floral wallpaper, and the grandmother opens the door, but she doesn't say anything to him. She just kind of looks almost disapprovingly and then closes the door again. It's almost like she doesn't even want to be bothered.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I wondered, to your question, if in that moment the Beth character felt like this overwhelming sense of failure because she couldn't keep her perfect life, her perfect family together.
Maybe.
And not that she blamed herself, but through conditions outside of her own control, this whole facade was now ruined.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't even go to her parents' house. She went to Houston
to be with her brother.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I guess just going to the parents would have been too close. I mean, she would still be in the same circle of friends.
Right, so it would be too close.
All the
plus,
eyes judging her.
Plus, who knows, like, what her relationship with her mother or her father. I mean, they don't really do anything to explain anything between her and her father, but it seemed like there was something between her and her mother. Yeah, so so that was my theory about that part. I thought about that as well, and I wondered. Let's talk about Academy Award winner Timothy Hutton as Conrad.
Oh, he was amazing.
He really was.
I mean, the funny thing is, it's a sad role, and Timothy Hutton just naturally looks like a sad
kid.
Yeah,
and they did like some great makeup,
especially in the beginning,
where he looks like he hasn't slept in like weeks.
Looks like he hasn't slept. His skin is clammy.
Yes.
You see it get a little bit better over time. He starts combing his hair. In the beginning, his hair was all disheveled.
Yeah.
I think maybe that had something to do with Elizabeth McGovern's character.
Sure.
What was her name?
Janine Pratt.
Janine. Yeah. Because the only thing that seemed to light up his eyes was her.
Yeah.
You could see he was...
genuinely liked her.
Yeah. And fortunately for him, she was...
into him
as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, things as far as that goes seem to be looking up for him, but he still just had that cloud of depression over him.
Yeah.
Guilt.
Let's talk about the Karen character, who makes one appearance in this, but is part of a pivotal part in a later scene. What did you think about that?
I could see how crushing that would be for him, because when they meet, she seems to have, it's like, I got it all together now. Everything's good. We're going to have a great Christmas. It's going to be, everything's looking up.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in his mind, it's sort of like she is an example of the light at the end of this tunnel. Maybe there is hope. And then he tries to get in touch with her, can't. He tries to get in touch with her again, and the father's just like, Karen killed herself. Click.
Right.
And that's got to be devastating, because it's the one example you had of somebody escaping this, somebody
a friend, somebody that went through the same thing that you did and came out on the other side and was, by all appearances, thriving. Yeah.
And it was a lie. It was a total lie. She was still living with this. She was just in denial.
Mm.
And she ended her life for whatever, I don't know what reasons she had.
They don't really go
into any details of that, but I could see him being like, well, how could I, if she can't do it, and she looked like she had everything going well for her.
Mm.
What does that say about my situation?
Right.
I'm still suffering from this. I'm still going through this. I never got out of it. She got out of it, and then she ended her life.
And that's the news that really puts him over the edge, basically.
And he's fortunate that he was able to reach Dr. Berger.
Right. And Berger was accommodating
yeah.
and was like, listen, just get to my office.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing how having somebody there for you
is so
when
important.
You need it is it's vital.
Yeah. And he says that. He says that, doesn't he? He was like, I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't answered my call.
Yeah. Because the description, what was it? You're in a hole, and the hole keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then you are the hole.
Yeah.
And it's like an avalanche.
So, and then I another thing that I sort of like stabbed my heart was when he's like, yeah, I'm talking to you as your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then Conrad is like, are you my friend? And he was like, yes. And then he hugs him and he starts to cry. And he needed that. He needed like human contact and comfort.
Yeah.
And I too appreciated that Berger didn't care about being on the clock, was just like, just meet me at the office and we'll work this out.
Yeah, exactly.
That was so important. And and I think in that sequence of events as well, earlier when he says to him, when Conrad tells Berger about Karen's death, it was also like an added layer to the onion, because he's like, are you going to take this on too now? Like, this isn't your fault. The fact that Karen killed herself has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
But I guess when you feel that low, all the bad stuff just starts piling up, sort of like what you just said about the hole.
Yeah.
Oy. Yeah, depression's a bitch. Let's talk about Beth. I mean, we've talked about her, but I need to make peace with this. I need to let this go, because obviously Mary Tyler Moore has passed on. Rest in peace. It's a shame that she didn't win an Oscar, because I have never seen another. Well, she was a decent actress. Let's start with that. I never thought I'd seen all reruns of the Mary Tyler Moore Show and all reruns of the Dick Van Dyke Show where she plays his wife.
I mean, that's different. That's
no.
lighthearted sitcom.
Sure. No. I'm just making a point. So I'd never really seen her in anything like this. So when I saw her in this impacted me so much. She is so electric in this. And even in the subtleties, she is a beast in this film. We need to give her recognition, because she is amazing. The Oscar went to Sissy Spacek for Coal Miner's Daughter, playing Loretta Lynn. That usually happens. The biopics usually win. Yeah. But it's unfortunate, because I think that Mary Tyler Moore had never been this audacious before or after this role. She always seemed to be like this actress that sort of blended into the scenery. She was cute. She was perky, whatever. But in this role, she is a beast. She is a beast. I mean, I have held on to this grudge for this woman for over 40 years now.
Yeah.
That's impressive. That is the quality of good acting.
Yeah. I mean, she's the scary mom that you have to walk on eggshells around.
Yeah.
And played that part brilliantly.
Amazingly. Let me repeat that for everyone. I have held a grudge against this woman for over 40 years because of this film. I defy anyone to watch this and not say, wow, Mary Tyler Moore is a bitch. I defy you to watch this and not think that.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to think otherwise.
Seriously.
Especially when she's like next to, Donald Sutherland, his character.
Who's a total schmoop.
Who exactly. He from the very beginning, he's just like, hey, you want some breakfast?
Yeah.
He's calling up to Conrad. He's trying to get him going in the morning. Yeah. He's asking him.
You said breakfast. That sequence where she just throws it away.
She just hurls 2 huge pieces of French toast into the garbage disposal.
Doesn't even put them away in tin foil for later or whatever. Or like, I'll eat it. No. Trash.
Yeah.
Bitch.
Yeah.
See, that's what I'm talking about. It's like little things like that.
It's like, oh, you're still moping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Why don't you go kill yourself again?
Exactly. Do us all a favor. I mean, that was the only thing left to say, right? Like, I always wondered, like, why didn't they just go there? Like, obviously she's thinking it. Just let her say it.
Yeah. She should have, like, given him the advice that Hal was giving himself. Just get in the car and drive. Don't come back.
All right. I mean, I feel like we've discussed this. I mean, this is just a magnificent film. It really is. It's kind of funny because, like, I know that some members of the family want to keep it nice and light, but I love these are the types of films I love because there's just so much to pick apart at and there's just so much to look at and understand. I've seen this movie at least a dozen times, at least.
Yeah.
And I always find something new. I feel like every time I watch this film, I always find something new. And it's funny because it's like, I saw this movie in a theater and was just completely outraged as an 8-year-old.
Well, kudos to 8-year-old you because 8-year-old me was pissed off at my mom for taking me to see this movie. And you know what's funny? You mentioned Coal Miner's Daughter. I had to sit through that one too. And I was like, God damn it. Oh my God.
You know what? I didn't see that in the theater. I may have seen it on Channel 11. I don't remember it, but I'm like, I want to say Mary Tyler Moore was better than Sissy Spacek.
I couldn't tell you because I was hating every minute of these movies. I mean, nobody was getting their head chopped off. Nobody was exploding. There wasn't a single cartoon character.
Yeah.
Not interested. 8-year-old me would have given these movies a big fat 0. Adult me could appreciate these films for what they are. I'm not going to begrudge any of the kids for being like, I want to keep it light. When they're older and they start like digging deeper into stories like this, they'll be able to appreciate it more.
Yeah, yeah. I hope so.
But like I said, kudos to 8-year-old you because I don't know of any other 8-year-old. I mean, when I went to school, none of us were like, hey, went into the movies. Yeah, so ordinary people. Boy, wow, that Mary Tyler Moore was a bitch.
Yeah.
That wasn't the discussion around the 8-year-old water cooler.
I think it's because the whole idea of family. I mean, I think that my family wasn't perfect, right? So you go to the movies to escape. So when you see something that I wouldn't say completely mirrored our familial experience, but there were cracks there that resonated with me and that I don't think we talked about. I'll be honest, like I guess my mother's mental illness, right? We never talked about that. We never talked about the depression in the family. So these are all things that it's like, I see it, I identify with it, and it scares me because it's like, wow, this really speaks to me. So, and then just the idea of family. I mean, your parents. Like, they're the first faces of love that you meet in this world, right?
Yeah.
And I think that to have, because we grow up, that's a thing. Like, you grow up, like, a mother always loves her children. But does she? Does she? That's not always the case.
No, I mean, people are people.
Exactly.
And some people just don't have that instinct in them.
Right.
They just, this burden.
Exactly. So it was interesting to see it from that vantage point, because you're so, or at least to me, I've been programmed to think, oh, mother is light and love and this, that, and the other thing. And it's not, that wasn't always the case. And I think seeing that example of Beth Jarrett, and I guess drawing the parallels with my mother, who, again, we didn't really talk about it. I mean, she had anger issues. She came through depression, and she came through long line of mental illness, but nobody ever talked about those things. Much like Beth, everything was kept secret. I mean, I've told you, like, my mother cut ties with family members for like the minutest offenses, to the point where we were isolated. Like, I don't know that side of the family. That family line doesn't exist anymore. So it's interesting to see stuff that speaks to you on the big screen, and then just having that, I guess, aha moment. It's weird. It's weird. So, I mean, that's where I came from, because, again, even as a young child, you know when you come from a broken home, right? And it's very obvious. And my dad was very much like the Donald Sutherland character. He was willing to look the other way just to keep the peace, or to keep things going, or keep things smooth. My mother definitely was like Beth Jarrett. She had a lot of anger. She had a lot of stuff in her head. She probably could have used mental services, but no one ever talked to her about that stuff. There was never an example. There was never a friend. If anybody ever brought something up to my mother, like, she would completely shut it down, much like Beth. I think I told you that story once about like talking to her about my brother, and like saying like, oh, maybe he needs some help. And she'd be like, no, this is the only help he needs. And just like shaking her fist, like 5 of the E's. And I was like, okay, crazy lady, I'm not talking to you anymore.
Well, it was different back then for like her growing up.
Nobody
talked about their feelings.
Right.
Feelings nonsense.
Right.
All you need is a swift kick in the ass.
And that's it. That'll fix you right up. And I mean, I guess, in hindsight, as a parent now, as an older adult, I can give my mother that grace and be like, you know what? She did the best that she could with what she had. But I wonder if she could have been happy, and if she could have thrived, if someone had taken the time, the patience, the will to propel her to get better. And nothing happens in a vacuum. When you're in that situation, you need help, much like Conrad needed his father. He needed his father because he couldn't have survived this by himself. He needed Dr. Berger. He needed Janine. He needed all these lifelines. Even Joe, the friend from the swim team, who really reached out to him and was like, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
But Conrad was like, and I understood Conrad's point. It's like, it just hurts too much to be near you because you remind me of Buck. So Joe kind of took it on the chin and was like, all right. I think he understood at that point. I think he tried to keep Conrad within the circle, but just couldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
So things obviously have to change. I mean, hopefully, who knows what happens later, but you would hope that the Conrad character finds peace and is able to resume his friendship with Joe. Let's talk about how Adam Baldwin doesn't age.
You know what? He's starting to age now.
He's starting to age now, yeah. But there was a bunch of decades there where
several
he
decades,
just,
yeah.
I mean,
like he doesn't look much different in Firefly than he did in this movie.
No, not really.
Yeah.
And that movie was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, he's got the good genes.
Yeah.
All right.
Scale of 1 to 10. What are you gonna give this film?
I will give this an 8.
An 8. Interesting. I know you don't believe in them, but this is a perfect film. There's nothing that could have made this better. This is an absolute 10. It's a banger. It was a banger in 1980. It's a banger now.
Banger.
Banger.
That doesn't sound appropriate for ordinary people.
We're mixing it up here.
This film about death and grief and whatnot. And it was like, oh, it's a banger.
It's a banger.
It's a real, just amazing good time.
All right, so 8, 10, absolutely check out Robert Redford's exquisitely crafted Ordinary People from 1980. It's streaming on Max. It is 2 hours and 4 minutes. It is rated R. There are themes of self-harm, depression, survivor guilt, but this is absolutely an exquisitely told story that just bears witness and is a testament to just amazing script writing by Alvin Sargent, who definitely deserved an Oscar. Unbelievable performances by Mary Tyler Moore, by Timothy Hutton, and by the late, great Donald Sutherland. Just wonderful, just beyond anything. And a shout out to Robert Redford for bringing this all together as the director and the main storyteller here. All right, so again, check this out on Max if you can. And again, it's Ordinary People from 1980, rated R, within a runtime of 2 hours and 4 minutes. And that's it from us. And we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.